All right. Also, we don't have a clicker situation, so if you're watching this, I'm going to disappear and re-enter into frame to switch slides. All right. For those of you who don't know me, I am Peter Steinbrenner, and I owned the gym up until April of this year. Mark is my brother. My mom is right there holding the baby. I went to school in La Crosse for exercise sports science and nutrition. I studied this. I've been working for Eupraxia for 8 years, studying nutrition in college, studying nutrition afterwards. And for those of you who, we're going to get into it in a second, but for those of you who know anything about doctors and nurses, they don't learn about nutrition at all. So I'm going to teach you. It's going to be great. All right. Do you mind? That'll be nice. Okay. Hi, I'm Pete, and I am a food addict. Hi, Pete. Hi, Pete. All right, there we go. Okay, cool. Actually, so full transparency, within the last year, I was actually addicted to quite a few things and in a pretty bad spot. So it started with caffeine because I'm getting up super early for these workouts and leading classes. And then I would nap in the middle of the day, take more caffeine after my nap to teach the afternoon classes. Just to get through the day, I was way overdoing the caffeine. Once that started not having an effect anymore, I started using nicotine pouches because that would give me a bump and I could be energetic and excited for leading classes. Once that couldn't do it anymore, I started reverting back to my old eating habits so that I could feel some good positive emotion. So I was eating a lot of junk food. My casual weekend drinking started creeping into the week. I was on social media all the time and used the excuse of I need it because I'm a small business owner, but I was really just scrolling a bunch. So my adrenal systems were fried. My energy systems were fried. I was full-blown eating junk and in a really bad place. I say all of that to tell you that, and I don't need like a big applause or anything, but no, hold on. I didn't even say the thing yet. I just did no caffeine for all of last month, 30 days without it. I haven't had nicotine in months. I haven't had alcohol all month, and I'm planning not to have a drink until Thanksgiving, just for like a little challenge thing for me. And I started eating a little bit better already, and I'm going to do this challenge with you guys. So what I'm saying is, if you're stuck on something, I was stuck on some things, a lot of things. It's tough, but you can absolutely crush it and get through it, and I'm going to help convince you as to why you can do it. Okay? So I am a food addict. Food is addictive. We're going to get to it, and you might be too. That's right. I got my helper Amy now. Okay, so everyone knows that cigarettes are bad for you. There's no real argument, okay? What you might not know is there's a new cigarettes. So from the 60s to the 80s, cigarette companies started to lose money because people started finding out that cigarettes are bad for you and governments were going to start mandating things. So guess what they did? The cigarette tobacco companies, the big ones, started buying up food companies. So the big food companies like Nabisco, Kraft, General Foods got bought out by tobacco companies, and their best consumers are addictive consumers. So they paid for scientists to make food addictive so that they have customers for the long haul. All right, so they're not on your side. Like these big food companies, everything that's in a box basically on the shelf is owned by tobacco companies. And back in like the 60s, 70s, and 80s, doctors recommended cigarettes as like a healthy thing as part of your health program. There's ads from it. Doctors recommending Camel cigarettes. The diet that we eat now is the new cigarette. And I guarantee you 40 years from now, if you guys all eat how I'm about to tell you, you'll all be here 40 years from now, they're going to tell you that this was the new cigarettes, the food, okay? Sugar, there's actually, you can look all of this stuff up. Big sugar industries paid scientists in the 1960s to downplay how bad sugar is and to say that saturated fat is the bad guy. And you might think this is like conspiracy or something like that. It's not. You can look it up. And the other thing is, let's just say that Ricky is in charge of like the FDA and like what is healthy. And I am Big Sugar and I have millions and billions of dollars. What's to stop me from saying, hey, Ricky, do you like money? Here's $10 million. If you could just say that sugar is great and something else is bad, that would be great. And Ricky's going to say, thank you very much. I have a family. They would love this millions of dollars. That's just how things work. Things are powered by money. Okay? Real quick, one of the people that was one of the Harvard professors that was paid to say that cholesterol and saturated fat is bad went on to actually be the head of the FDA. So a lot of these people that are telling us how we're supposed to eat are actually people that have been paid off, and it's just, again, I'm not going to get too deep into the weeds here, but one more thing. The FDA knew how bad trans fats were for years before they pulled it off the shelf. There's studies showing that trans fat causes cardiovascular issues, even up to death. And when they found out, they let all of the trans fat that was still on the shelf get sold before they said, okay, no more on the shelf, because they again, my whole point is, let's just go to the next slide. I'll show you. Okay, we're sick by design. So the US has the highest chronic disease numbers. Chronic means long lasting, like you have to take pills for your whole life because you have this thing that doesn't go away. Chronic disease numbers in the world, but yet we spend the most on healthcare. That doesn't make any sense. If we're spending the most on healthcare, we should be the healthiest country. We're the worst, the least healthiest country. Pharmaceutical companies, which are a business, can and do fund the medical schools that are teaching the doctors what to prescribe and why. Real quick, I'm not demonizing anybody's doctor. I don't think doctors are an issue. I think that your doctors want to help you, but they're taught in school by people who are above them that pay the school. Again, let's say, Dan, you're the lead guy at Harvard and you're making all these studies. And I'm, what's a drug company? Doesn't matter. Pfizer. And I'm Pfizer, and I say, hey, I got this new drug that I'd really like to be passed on to every single person that exists in the country because it would make me a lot of money. Here's $10 million to fund your school that you need to have a school. It'd be a real bummer if your school had to close because you don't have any funding, wouldn't it? Cool beans. All right, so it's not personal, it's business. Just a real quick anecdote that I like is a lot of you guys that have bought washers and dryers in the last 5 to 10 years know that they're made to break down. A lot of you guys who have bought children's toys know that they break easy. But if you have toys that were made in the 1950s, they're still around. The companies realize that they need things that break so that people buy more things. You might have a washing machine from the 1980s or 90s that's still working. And then companies were like, hey, shouldn't we just make things that break and need to be fixed? Unfortunately, you are the product, and you bring in money by staying sick, staying broken down. Okay, but we don't want to be like that. Cool beans. Next slide. All right, so all that to say, if you want to be healthy, energetic, and live a happy life, it's seriously up to you. You can't let other people tell you what you need to do. You have to take in control of your own life, your own health, okay? Not only is no one else going to do it for you, but we are making pharmaceutical companies and the big food companies rich by staying perpetually sick, okay? All right. Real quick, inflammation is one of the biggest issues that we have. So our body has inflammation as a good thing because it's supposed to help us heal. So there's acute and there's chronic inflammation. Acute is my wife. She's not here right now. But acute inflammation is, I'm hoping she watches this later. Acute inflammation is like if you sprain your wrist or you sprain your ankle or you get a cut and it kind of swells up, but your body's trying to heal itself. Chronic inflammation is, I've been having arthritis in my right hip for 15 years. Your body is constantly trying to heal that, and it's inflamed all the time, which leads to swelling and pain, and that's what the inflammation is, okay? So in our food, unfortunately, our food, it's actually not food. I refer to it as non-food, okay? Everything basically that's on the shelf is inflammatory. So if you're saying everything hurts and it's been hurting me for years, most of the time it's because you're inflamed from what we've been eating. Okay. So that, just a quick thing. It's bad news first, good news later. So we're almost through the bad news, all right? All right, so processed foods are addictive. Again, they've paid scientists whose number one goal is to make things addictive to make the foods that most of us are eating. It's really disappointing. But a lot of the junk food that we eat increases our ghrelin and reduces leptin. Those are hormones. The ghrelin is what tells you that you want to eat more. So it increases that. So this food that we're eating makes us hungrier. By design, the hormones say, eat more, we're hungry. And it reduces leptin, which tells us that we're full. So it's working poorly in both directions, which is why so many of us are overeating, okay? It leads to aches and pains, which again is from the inflammation. Fatigue, like if you're just like dragging through every single day, a lot of that is just what we're eating. Chronic disease, brain fog, not being able to think clearly. Autoimmune, like skin issues, gut issues. And a huge one too is mental health, okay? there's a nerve that goes from your brain to your stomach, which is directly affected by what you eat, called the vagus nerve. And that, what you eat, affects your mood directly. So if you're in a bad mood and you're sad all the time, a lot of times it's because we're eating junk. And this junk makes us sad. We replace that with good, healthy food. Guess what? The microbiome, which is billions of bacteria that's in your gut, affects that nerve that goes to your brain, and you feel better. So it genuinely is scientific. If you want to feel better, eating better is a huge difference, along with all those. Okay. All right, why do most diets work? So food can be very confusing, which is why I know a lot of you guys are here, is to know, well, what should I eat? And we're going to get to that in a second. But why most diets work is because they get rid of the toxic non-food that does all of the negative things that we just talked about. All right, a lot of times it's just, vegan. Okay, that's fine, cool. You're getting rid of all of the junk. Carnivore, which is only meat. Okay, you're getting rid of all of the junk. Inflammation goes away. Fat falls off. You just feel better. And it's not super critical as to what combination of things you're eating perfectly. It's get rid of the junk. Get rid of the things that have ingredients lists on them. Food is, my number one thing I want to kind of deliver to you guys today is food is one ingredient. You grab a thing of cabbage, it doesn't have 50 ingredients on the label. If you go and grab a carton of eggs, there's no ingredients on the thing. It's eggs. So one ingredient things is food in general. Most things that you find have way too many ingredients. That's toxic non-food. Get rid of it. Cool. All right. So I like analogies because sometimes we hear different things over and over, but it doesn't really land or get stuck. So which fuel would you pay for? So a lot of times I hear, again, I've been doing this for like 8 years, and I know one of the big things is, Pete, it's too expensive. I can't afford healthy food. I understand that. But think of it like this. You can pay for 2 fuels for your car. You have one car. We have one vehicle. You have one car that's going to drive you around for the rest of your life. You can't buy a new one, okay? And you can pick one of 2 fuels. One is a little bit cheaper, all right? And it gets you 5 miles to the gallon. It has gunk in it that makes your car break down every 30 miles, so you have to take it in and pay extra to the mechanic all the time. And it's going to decrease the life of your car by 20 years. And your car just goes like this as you're driving, okay? But it's a little bit cheaper. The other one that might be a little bit more expensive, you get 150 miles to the gallon. Your car almost never breaks down. You're getting 20 more years out of your car. It drives smooth and you almost never have problems and you don't have to worry about it. And it starts up first time every time. Wouldn't you pay a few extra cents for each gallon for that second fuel? This is your vehicle that you're stuck with for the rest of your life, and you get to pick the fuel that you're putting into it. That's my point. Okay.
As my better half says, pay now or pay later.
That's right. Pay now or pay later. Exactly right. So what's going wrong is we are not living as humans. If you kind of zoom out and take like an objective approach or look at us, we are an animal, okay? And we're not living like human animals should be living. We're like a fish out of water and we're drowning. We're sick, we're overweight, we're dragging along, we have all these sorts of issues. It's like if you dropped a lion in the middle of the ocean. A lion is the king of the jungle. In its habitat, it thrives, it's number one. We're meant to thrive as humans. We're not meant to have all these aches and pains all the time and lug around all this extra weight and be sick going to the doctor on 15 medications. We're meant to thrive, but we're not in our environment as humans, okay? Hi, buddy. Okay, next slide. Okay, here we go. So, okay, Pete, what won't kill me? Here we go. This is the good stuff. So, meat, again, I'm not here to make a like moral, religious kind of debate about food. People get very emotional about food because it's near and dear to us. It's cultural a lot of times, things like that. I'm not pushing anything. I'm telling you what's good, okay? All right, let's separate that. So if you're a vegan or vegetarian, awesome. If you're not having the junk, cool, I love it. But meat is extremely nutrient. It's very nutrient dense, especially beef. Okay, again, a lot of the studies from the old times that said red beef is killing you and saturated fat is killing you, those are paid off by people that wanted you to not be healthy, okay? So meat, beef, chicken, fish, eggs, bacon, pork. You want to come up? Okay, bye. All right. Vegetables, any vegetables you want. Fruit, any fruit you like. Sweet potatoes without the skin is a little bit better because everything is sprayed. So if you just take the skin off, you're getting less of the sprays that are on there. Henry, go play, please. Go run. Okay. Avocados are awesome. And for cooking, coconut oil, avocado oil, and butter. Oh yeah, I talked about this, but one ingredient foods are foods. Okay, so look at things at the grocery store. If it has one ingredient on it, then it's a food. Okay, it's not toxic. The other way that you can test it is if it was made in a factory. Not if it like went through a factory to get processed, but if it was made in a factory, it's not a food. Okay, it's toxic. Not food, poison. That's a good reason. Would you put poison in your body? No. All right, cool. Next slide. And then you might say, that's it. That's all I can eat. That's no fun. But what helps me when I was going through, because I went through serious withdrawals for all of those things. It's a big deal, and it's very tough. But what helped me get through was switching my focus from what I was missing out on to what I was gaining. Okay? So it's not, I'm going to miss that sweet taste that's in my mouth for 5 minutes. It's, I'm going to have my energy back. I'm going to have my drive for life back. I'm going to have mental clarity. I'm going to not have to go to the doctor every month and pay thousands of dollars for all of these meds that I'm on. Kev? All right, kind of touched on this, but this is what it's about. It's about getting your life back. It's the four words that are on the windows. Take your life back. It's in your control to be healthy. It's about being able to play with your kids, go on that adventure, getting your self-confidence back. A lot of time, life is so crazy different if you believe in yourself and if you don't. This is about, you know what, this is the time I'm going to stick to it and I'm really going to do this. And I believe in myself and life is just better. All right? You love your life and excited for each new day, get rid of all the pain and meds, and to be free of the dependency. That's another big thing. So one of the biggest struggles, if you're an addict like me of anything, you know this, is the need for it. I'm not going to get too much into coffee because it's not the worst of the worst. But every morning you wake up and you're just like, you know what? I need that cup of coffee to survive the day. I need that donut in the morning. If I don't get my beer at the end of the night, just to break that dependency and to be free and to know that you can exist without it, the freedom of that in your brain is incredible. So that's just another benefit of breaking our addictions to food and feeling better and eating good. Okay, so you've heard of the the food pyramid, which is a sham. They changed it to the My Plate, equally a sham. This is my plate. Okay, this is the actual good stuff and what your plate should look like if you're willing to eat these foods. All right. So half of your plate, meat. Half of the plate is meat. Beef, chicken, fish, eggs, whatever it is. Meat is so full of nutrients and protein, and it's satiating to keep you full. It's incredible. So if you're like, if you're someone who's like, I'm always hungry, eat more meat. All right. And then the other half, veggies, any you want, fruit, any you want, starch, like sweet potatoes. If you want to get into like rice and rice noodles, white rice is okay. If you're trying to lose weight though, it doesn't really keep you full and there's not a ton of nutrients in it. It's just calories. So if you're trying to lose weight, I would shy away from the white rice and the rice noodles, but it's not terrible for you inherently. Okay, so these are just a few of my meals, just to kind of show you for examples. On the left there, chicken, mushrooms, bacon, some seasoning, some noodles under there. I'm going to get to that in a second. You're like, oh, Pete eats noodles. That's naughty. I'm going to show you in a second. On the right is a salad. You almost can't see the leafy greens because this is how I like to eat my salad. Bunch of chicken, avocado, some cherry tomatoes, sweet peppers, salt and pepper. Okay, go to the next one. We'll see some more here. On the left, chicken with veggies. It's the easiest dinner you could ever make. You put any chicken you want with veggies. You put it in the oven for like an hour. Boom. Piece of cake, delicious. On the right, that's a gluten-free tortilla and beef, tomato, homemade mayo that my wife makes is amazing. You know, mustard, pickles, bacon, lettuce. Delicious, nutritious, awesome. On the left is another salad I made with some berries added on. And on the right, ground beef, Brussels sprouts with bacon, and some noodles. Kev? Okay, so don't buy the normal noodles. If you need noodles, which I just really like to help stay on track, I'll get to that in a second. So The Banza is made from chickpeas. There's almost zero junk in it. It's way higher in protein. It's going to keep you fuller, and it's delicious. So if you're like, Pete, I can't give up my noodles, just switch to this. It's going to be way, 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 way better for you. Okay? Any grocery store has them. And it'll be in the same aisle as the rest of this stuff, but it might not be with it. It's probably next to the other noodles and stuff. Okay, so for those of you doing the 6-week challenge, myself included, I hope you're doing it with us. I would avoid alcohol first of all right? And there's one big reason for it. It screws up your sleep. There's every study under the sun that looks at alcohol, your sleep is destroyed. People who have the watch that shows you the quality of your sleep, if you're drinking, the next morning you look, your sleep quality was trash. And when you're already going to be making some food changes and you're going through some fatigue and some withdrawals, to add on more fatigue from bad sleep is just awful. Plus, a lot of times, we're not just drinking straight shooters. We're mixing it with sweet stuff and all this added sugar to make it delicious. Please just try for 6 weeks and then go on a binge. No, don't go on a binge. But when you're done, you can introduce it back and see how you feel. All grains. I would cut out all grains, again, just for these 6 weeks. Dairy, added sugar, okay? Artificial sugars is kind of a question mark, but it does give you an insulin response, and it does cue cravings. So if you're like, Pete, this is sugar-free, but it's got like erythritol or any of the other OSes, if it ends in OSE, O-S-E, dextrose, things like that, maltodextrin, those are all sugars. They're artificial sugars, and they do mess with your insulin and your glucose and all that stuff. And your brain thinks that there's calories coming, but it's not. Anyways, I'm not going to get into the whole science of it. But if you're willing, I would just go all in, cut out the artificial sugars, added sugars, the dairy, the grains, the gluten. Okay, and the reason why is think of this as a reset. Because I'm actually not huge anti-dairy. I think if you can get like raw dairy for sure and like make your own yogurt and all that kind of stuff, I'm not huge anti-dairy. But a lot of people, it gives you a really bad immune response, and we just don't know that it's dairy that's causing it. So take these 6 weeks, let your body heal, and if you're a huge yogurt person, then add the yogurt back in for a day and see if that gives you a negative response. But you won't know unless you completely reset. So that's what this is. There's a couple types of people. Again, I've done this forever, and the reason I wanted to do kind of a new talk is I've just learned more about people and what works. If you are the perpetual quitter, who started and quit a diet fad thing before? Nobody? Everybody's hand probably, all right? So if you are, hey Pete, I've done this, I've failed, I've done this, I've failed, I've done this, I've failed, I want you to try a couple things. A week 1 wean off. So instead of going cold turkey, your first week, get rid of 2 things, keep 1 thing. So maybe you get rid of dairy and added sugar, but you keep the gluten. Or you get rid of gluten, but you keep the dairy, just for the first week. So that's not as difficult of a switch. The other thing I would recommend is adding all the good, but not restricting the bad. So I'm going to have chicken and veggies for my dinner, and then afterward I get to have the chocolate cake or whatever it is. For week 1, if you really struggle, eat all of the good first without mentally saying I can't have any bad, but then you have to wait until you've eaten all the good stuff. Does that make sense? So this is for specific people. If you're like, I need to be all or nothing, don't do this. Go cold turkey, go 100% all in. Cool? All in is the fastest way to do it, but it doesn't work for everybody. I would rather you go a little bit slower and wean off of things and stick with it than go cold turkey, and on day 3 of kind of going through some crummy feeling, you quit and fall back, okay? All right, quick tip for turning down the donuts at work, whatever the treat is that people bring in, all right? So I want you to repeat after me. Someone said, hey, it's my birthday, here's a piece of cake or whatever the thing is, here's some pizza. And this is audience participation, so I'd love to hear everybody speak, all right? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Unfortunately, I recently found out that that food gives me explosive diarrhea. Guess what? They're going to say, oh, I'm sorry. No worries. I'll keep this far away from you. And they won't ask you any more questions, and it'll be done with. Because that pops up a lot. You go to somebody's house, and they're having treats, You can obviously just say, I'm actually doing this challenge. It's fine. And most people will leave you alone. But there are some persistent people that won't leave you alone. Explosive diarrhea works every single time. Okay, so some tips. This may shock you. Week 1, again, for getting through the kind of crummy feelings, eat as much as you want. Don't count a calorie. Don't vary your portions. You want to stay full as much as possible because it's when you're hungry, especially for you addicts like me. There's some of you guys out there for sure. If you're hungry, that's when you're going to cheat. Also, if you don't like salads, don't eat them. I'm giving you full permission to never eat a salad again for the rest of your life. When it comes to veggies, eat the ones you like, eat as much as you feel is appropriate. Some people thrive on meat and fruit and nuts, and they have carrots once in a while, and they are so healthy. So don't feel the need. That's a big issue with making the changes. Oh, I have to force feed myself Brussels sprouts. I need a salad every day with lunch, and I just can't do this for the rest of my life. Don't do it. Okay. All right, so now we're getting to the nitty-gritty of change. Okay, so hopefully you guys are like, okay, this stuff is poisoning me. I don't want to put poison in my body anymore. I don't want to support the big tobacco companies and be sick forever. And I want to eat this stuff, but I've tried and failed and tried and failed. So a lot of times there's motivational speakers and things that will say, oh, you just got to change, or you got to make some sacrifices. And then they never specify what that actually looks like. So you're just like, okay, like I want to, but what does that mean? So our life is, if you picture a water cup, 100% full of water. Everything that you do in your life, it's full to the brim, all right? And a lot of us have tried to add in health and fitness on top, pouring more water on top. But your glass is already full. There's no room, all right? You need to take some out to put some in, okay? So that's what change really is. One of my favorite examples is from college to now. When I was in college, I was playing video games. I was going out late and partying on the weekends. Sorry, Mom, but I was a little bit. I was playing basketball a lot. I was doing some classes, whatever. Now I have a wife and kids. First of all, I really enjoyed college life. Vegging out on the couch, watching movies whenever I wanted. That life was awesome. I had to give up almost all of that to now have a wife and 2 wonderful kids and a full-time job and all that stuff. And guess what? Life is better. I dumped some of the stuff out that a lot of times would be like, oh, I'm going to miss that. And you know some people in their 40s that are still living in college. It's a little sad. Life gets better when you give things up to put in more good stuff, okay? Let's see. Okay, so excuses. A big one is I can't get to the gym. Okay, well, we have a 5 a.m. class. Oh, I could never. Well, why? Well, I go to bed at 11:30. Okay, don't do that. Go to bed at 8:30. Oh, well, I need to scroll on my phone and watch Netflix for 2 hours before I go to bed to unwind. That is what you need to dump out so that you can go to bed earlier, so you can get a good night's sleep, which is huge. Sleep is incredible, so that you can come. And that is what real change and sacrifice is. It's cutting out that dead time so that you can make time for health, okay? Oh, yeah, sorry, one last thing. Taking a day off from parenting. So I like to think of taking care of your body like taking care of your kids. If you have kids, you know that probably half of the time, if not more, you want to take the day off from being a parent. You'd like to call in sick from taking care of the poopy diaper or feeding a crying whatever or dealing with issues. But you can't. You physically can't. That's your kid. You have to get up at 2 a.m. when they're screaming, even though you have zero desire. You cannot take a day off from taking care of yourself. If you have that mindset of even when you don't feel like it, you have to, that consistency is what you need to be successful for the long run. All right, boundaries. So growing up, I was the quintessential, I don't want to schedule, I don't want boundaries, I don't want to have any like rigorous, this is what I need to do. I flew by the seat of my pants. Whatever came up, that's what I'm going to do, whatever I felt like. And it works really well through college. After that, not so much. Turns out to be chaos because you need some structure so that you can get things done. One of my favorite examples is kids playing soccer by a cliff. So there's this story of kids that are playing soccer and there's a cliff, but there's a big wall there. So they can run around and play and kick the ball and they're having a great time and they feel free kicking this ball, even though there's a big cliff over there. But some parent drives by and says, hey, that wall is restricting their freedom. knock this wall down so that they can go wherever they want. So they knock the wall down, and now there's a cliff there with no boundary. And the kids are like, well, okay, we can't play anymore because if we fall off, we're going to get seriously hurt. Okay? Boundaries keep us safe and give us clarity. So the boundary in your brain is this toxic non-food is just not an option anymore. You go into the grocery store and you can feel free being like, I'm not even going down the aisles. I'm going to the produce. I'm going to the meat department. I'm going to get my fruit, my veggies, my meat. And it also saves you time and energy in your brain going into the store and be like, you know what? Maybe this time I'll get a snack. What snack should I get? Should I go right for the Oreos? No. Maybe I should get a medium healthy snack so it's not completely terrible. What's a medium? And then you're just thinking in your head of all the things, and then you feel guilt. Wall, boundary, draw that line. It's off limits because that structure actually gives you clarity and freedom. So you're not stressed out all the time. Cocaine is an option to all of us. If you ask around to enough people, you could probably get some. But we don't want it because we know that the cons outweigh the pros. Maybe it'll be really fun for a day, but it's not worth it. It's the same thing with the junk. All of it is an option. We could run to Pick and Save and get 24 donuts and eat them in one sitting. It's an option, but we won't do it. Boundary of the 24-hour fast for colonoscopy. Similar idea. So, I'm speaking to all of you addicts out there. A lot of people will say, Pete, I can't do this. But if the doctor says you have a colonoscopy tomorrow, you need to fast for 24 hours, guess what? You flip a switch and you say, doctor's orders, I can't have food. And now you go to your niece's birthday party and there's cake there, and all of a sudden you can say, no, I have a colonoscopy tomorrow. I can't do it. Okay? So we can all say no. We all have the ability to put that boundary up. But think of, I have to fast, but now I can eat all the healthy food too. So I don't have to be hungry. I can eat all the good stuff. So that's the switch to flip. We're almost done, I promise. All right. So this is what makes or breaks you. The first week, I've gone through withdrawals before with a lot of stuff. This is what makes or breaks it. So there's going to be fatigue, headaches, lack of motivation, irritability. For that first week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on who you are, this is normal. So it's important to have the right expectations going into it so that it doesn't set you back and make you revert to your old eating habits. Tell yourself, Pete said this would happen, and this is good because it's actually a step towards feeling amazing. Your brain will try and trick you and say, maybe Pete was actually not right about this stuff. Maybe he's actually an idiot and Oreos are good for you. Your brain will do this because it's going through withdrawals and you want your fix. Okay, look at the second from the bottom. Feel free to leave me a voicemail cursing me out for those first 2 weeks. If you feel like junk and you are just like losing it, first of all, eat more food so that you're not hungry. Second of all, if you're just irritable, call me, yell at me, whatever. I'd rather you leave me a voicemail of hate than go back to whatever and you have to restart all over again. All right? So know what to expect so that when it does come up, you're not thrown off. It's temporary, and on the other side, you're going to feel amazing. All right, looking at people who are health nuts. A lot of times we'll look at people who are super fit and eat healthy all the time and think, again, I've been here, and the mindset is, I could never. Those people are crazy. Like, how do they go to the gym every day and they seem to enjoy it? Your brain changes. There's neuroplasticity. Your brain can change. So after you start eating healthy and you start going to the gym, there's a really good chance that you're going to become that person. There's a lot of health junkies that started out being super unwell, super overweight, and they just hit rock bottom and decided no more. And your brain can change. So there's a good chance you might think now, I could never. What's wrong with these people? That you could change into, I get excited to eat healthy food, and I get excited to go to the gym because I know how awesome it is for me. How long will it take? A lot of times, again, this goes back to that first week. We've been eating non-food, toxic, non-addictive food for decades, a lot of us. And then after 3 days, we're like, Pete, it's not working. Give your body some time to heal. That's why we're doing this 6 weeks. Your body does heal pretty quick in relation to that. Give yourself at least 6 weeks of all in so that you can feel amazing. Plan ahead. You can bring fruit, beef jerky, apples with almond butter is an amazing snack. Egg bites, trail mix without peanuts. Peanuts aren't good. Plan your food the night before. One of the awesome things about the challenge is Mark is giving you meal plans. So the whole 6 weeks, he's going to give you food that to make. But again, don't feel the need to make those things if you don't like it. Meat, veggies, fruits, some healthy nuts, you're golden. Also, if you're not hungry for healthy food, you're not hungry. Okay? You're a junkie looking for a fix, just like me. All right? If you see some juicy ribeye steak and maybe whatever you like on the side, and that doesn't like make your mouth water a little bit, and you're like, oh, then you're full. Okay? If you don't want healthy food, you're not hungry. Okay? Last slide, I think. So food addiction is an addiction. It's a serious thing. Don't think that it's not. People are making this in a lab to keep you addicted. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they don't say, I'm going to be sober for life. They say, I'm going to be sober for today. And then the next day they wake up and say, I'm going to be sober for today. They don't think long-term because that's overwhelming for the brain. I want you to have that same mindset for these 6 weeks. Forget about 6 weeks. Because if you're focused on the end and you can't wait for your dessert 6 weeks from now, you're done. Focus on today and say, can I give everything I have today? Can I be perfect with my food today? And the next day, do that again. Because again, it gets too overwhelming. Just focus on doing well today. Forget about the 6 weeks. Yeah. Kev? Eventually it'll come. You do that every day and eventually 6 weeks will be up. All right. In scary times, we don't know what's going on with the world and all that stuff. A lot of times I think, and I think a lot of you guys think, like, what can I do? What can I do to like make things better or make a difference? What you can control is you can take control of your health and vitality so that you can be ready for whatever happens, good or bad, so that you can take care of your family, whatever happens, good or bad. That's what you can do, to have energy, vitality, to feel good so that you can crush your life at work or whatever it might be. Okay, so this is the actual last slide. A lot of times we hope or even pray for things to get better. But the only way that things get better is when you get better. And all of the people here at the gym, Mark, myself, every other member here, is here to encourage you to be the best spouse, the best coworker, employee, whatever it is, person that you can be so that you can absolutely crush your life. Kev? I think that's it. All right, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Because again, I've been doing this a long time. I didn't cover a ton of detail just because I wanted to get the basics for everybody. Are there any quick questions that people have?
What's your take on canned vegetables and fruit compared to my lifestyle? Sometimes it's
Yeah.
better for me to open a can.
Yep. So I would go with ease every time. It's the same thing with organic versus inorganic. It's a tiny bit better to do organic. It's a tiny bit better to do fresh versus canned. But if that's the difference between you going back to eating junk food and pizza and donuts or canned vegetables, go canned all day, for sure. Yep.
Nuts? We free with all nuts?
Yeah, so nuts are actually really good. The only one I would avoid is peanuts because it's actually a legume. And a lot of times it grows with a cancer-causing mold on it, aflatoxin that grows on it. So it could be a carcinogen, and it's not a nut. So I would just avoid peanuts. And a lot of people have allergic reactions to it. So for these 6 weeks for sure, no peanuts. The rest of nuts are awesome, but normally when you buy nuts to eat, a lot of times they come salted with like wasabi or like oils, and they're like super delicious, and you just go, oh yeah, nuts are great. But they're so calorically dense. There's tons of calories in like a handful. So I would just say go really small with the amount, but feel free to eat like cashews, almonds, walnuts. Those stuff is actually really good. As far as losing weight though, it's just so many calories, but a lot of nutrients. Does that make sense?
But if they're roasted, they're often roasted in oil.
Yeah, a lot of times roasted are, so you would like to go for the raw nuts. Raw because then also you're not getting any of the seasonings that make them way tastier. And just for a fun fact, if you go to like what humans are meant to do, like again, the lion isn't meant to be in the ocean. Humans, when we found nuts, a lot of times they have a hard outer shell that we would have to like go find a rock and smash it to just get one little of the nuts. That's why there's so many calories in it, because you got to work for it. But we can get a bag full of it and just go without working at all. So raw is better, small amounts are better, but nuts are good for you. Other questions?
What about using crystal light and water to get that treat every once in a while?
Like I mentioned, 6 weeks, I would just cut out the artificial sweeteners just because it does give you an insulin response and it does give you, it further gives you those cravings for sugar. So it's gonna it's not the end of the world. And if that's the difference between sticking to it or not, please go for it. But all in is just gonna be better, and I would cut that out too. Last chance? Okay.
All right, one more hand for Pete. One more hand for Pete.